So here we are, closing out 2023. It's been a crazy year for me, lots of ups and downs. Started out the year with my son getting bit by a dog. He was attacked by a dog and his arm was broken, and that was a 6-month healing process, and it was a nightmare. And I did rely on my channel a lot as an outlet, coming down here at night into my studio and making videos really did help. However, not everything was negative. The birth of my daughter later in the year was a huge highlight for our family, and it sort of brought us out of the fog that we were in from what happened earlier in the year. Tons of growth here on the channel, and like I said, I really relied on you guys. I love making these videos, and it's been an outlet for me throughout the year. And of course, now that we're nearing the end of 2023, I want to make my top videos, and this is going to be the top watches of 2023. I had to cut the list short because there were so many watches that I wanted to include. So if I missed anything, tell me down in the comments below. I want to hear what you guys think. What are some of the watches that I missed? Maybe you don't agree with some of the watches that are on this list. So without further ado, let's talk about my top 20 watches of 2023. The first watch on this list is probably no surprise for those who have seen the videos that I've done on this watch here on my channel. It is the Timex Marlin chronograph. I featured a Panda version here on my channel, and I also featured a two-tone version, which I found very, very interesting. These come in at around $179 on a strap, a little bit more expensive on the bracelet, but all in all, the styling on these watches, the Art Deco look, the chronograph layout, the dials, all of the little details make this watch a winner, especially at the price that they're selling it for. Next on this list is a watch that I liked so much. It's a watch that I actually purchased. It's the Longines Hydro Conquest GMT. I think they got the proportions right, the design right. I really like all of the updates that they made to this watch from the previous Hydro Conquest, which I wasn't a huge fan of. This watch, I am a very big fan of. 300 meters of water resistance. It's not COSC certified like the Spirit, but I like this watch and I like the design better than the Spirit, and that's why I went for this watch. It's also a little bit cheaper, and the bracelet gets micro adjust. Everything about this watch I think is great, and of course that's the reason why I bought one. Next on this list is a Christopher Ward, and I'm surprised there are not more Christopher Wards on this list. It seems like they keep on coming out with awesome watches. The 12 was an amazing release this year. Integrated bracelet watch, titanium or stainless steel, 40 millimeters or 36 millimeters, great dials, a great movement. It's the finishing on the case and the bracelets that really make these watches stand out. They've beaten the PRX at quality. These are incredible watches that definitely deserve to be on this list. Next on this list is a Seiko, and I'm actually surprised that a Seiko made this list, but this is definitely the best Seiko of 2023. It's the reissue of the Navigator Timer. It's a GMT. It's really nicely proportioned. They actually put a very nice bracelet on here. It gets a friction fitted bezel, so that means the bezel always lines up. Maybe they should switch all of their watches to friction fitted bezels, but that's for a different conversation. Just a really good looking vintage inspired watch that gets a GMT function at a pretty good price. It's around $1,500, but with that being said, it is a very good looking vintage feeling watch, and that's why it's on this list. The next watch on this list, number 5, is a watch that I think went under the radar. The announcements on this watch, there weren't really that many. It's a Tissot. It's the Heritage 1938 dress watch. They came out with a trio of watches. One had a salmon dial, and that's really the one that I think of when I think of this watch. There was also a sub-seconds or a small seconds version, which I thought was gorgeous as well. But that salmon dial with a Paramatic 80 chronometer certified textured dial, really nicely sized, I think around 40 millimeters. And they come in under $1,000. Just a really beautiful dress watch at a very good price. And of course it's a Tissot, so you know it's actually made well as well. Great watch at a great price. Another Tissot on this list, it is the Citadel. I was blown away by the quality of this watch for around $1,000. This is a 300 meter dive watch. It gets a really clicky, nice bezel. It's 70s inspired, so the case is on the larger side. It's around 42 millimeters, but it's lightweight because it's made out of forged carbon fiber. It also gets a trick strap, which is really cool, and it reminds me a lot of what you get on a modern smartwatch. But this is actually a very faithful recreation of a 1970s diver that Tissot came out with. It looks almost exactly like that original Citterall, and I think they got it perfect. They did a great job with this watch. So there are a few Citizen on this list, and one of my favorite releases from Citizen this year was the Sayosa. The Sayosa, an integrated bracelet watch that is affordable and good looking. And a lot of people were comparing it to a Rolex Oyster Perpetual. It actually looks like an Oyster Perpetual had a baby with a PRX, and what you get is an integrated bracelet look in a design that's more classic, less modern than a PRX or maybe a 12 at a very affordable price. They also put an 8 series Miyota movement in here, and they did something a little bit special with it. It's gilt color, so it's a gold tone, the movement. Everything about this watch is great at a really great price. Next, we have another Citizen. It's the Series 8 GMT. These are integrated bracelet watches that get a slightly upgraded version of the Miyota 9075. So this is their own 9075 that gets a little bit better finishing. They made 3 colorways for this watch. There is a Batman, a Pepsi, and then there is a limited edition gold version with a beautiful textured dial. All 3 got textured dials. However, that gold version was a little bit special. It's a 2-tone between rose gold and regular yellow gold. Very interesting design on these watches. They are on the more expensive side, but you are getting a Traveler's GMT and you're getting a really high quality watch. And these are definitely very good looking watches. Speaking of Traveler's GMTs, this is one of my favorite GMTs of 2023. It's the Bulova Oceanographer 666 Devil Diver GMT. I actually featured the Stormtrooper, at least that's what I called it here on my channel. It was the fully loomed dial version. This is basically a Devil Diver that they put a 9075, a Miyota movement inside. It is a Traveler's GMT. It has all the good looks of the Devil Diver, but now in a GMT form. The Stormtrooper version, the one that I featured here on my channel, is definitely my favorite. It gets a fully loomed dial. It's black and white at its best. Really cool watch, really good looking, and it gets 300 meters of water resistance. Next is a watch that I will have in my collection one day. I'm a big fan of Kermit the Frog, and this is the Oris Kermit collaboration. The dial is Kermit green. The date wheel actually features Kermit as well, which I think is a great touch. When you look at it, you don't realize that it's actually a Kermit the Frog watch. It's in titanium. It's based on the ProPilot X. So you're getting an integrated bracelet, very modern looking watch with a green dial, and it's a very bright green. You have to look at it very closely to know that it's a watch that features Kermit the Frog. Next is a watch that snuck in under the radar. I have not gotten my hands on this watch, but from what I have seen, it looks fantastic. It is the new Seiko 5 Field GMT. This looks like a great watch. It gets the 4R34, which is of course Seiko's affordable GMT. It's really nicely proportioned. It looks like an Explorer GMT. It's based on their already very popular Field watch. You're just adding a bezel that gives you 24-hour track, and then of course that GMT function. It is a military GMT or an office GMT, whatever you want to call it, but no matter what, these are going to come in at around $500, and they are good looking watches. I'm really excited to get one in for review here on my channel. Next on this list is a watch that was basically just downsized, and that's the reason why it's on this list. However, it's from a brand that I've already featured here on this list already. It's Longines and the Legend Diver in 39 millimeters. They downsized the Legend Diver, and that's why it's on this list. They are listening to the people who are talking about their watches, and they downsized a very important release for them just a few years ago to 39 millimeters. It's a great looking watch in 42 millimeters. It's even better in 39 millimeters, and this is what people wanted. Next on this list is the Hamilton Khaki Field Expedition, a really good looking watch with a weird bezel. I don't really think it's weird, actually. I just don't think it's very, very useful. I don't think a lot of people would actually use the bezel on this watch, but that's kind of the reason why I like it. It gets a compass bezel, which is kind of cumbersome to use. People wouldn't really use it unless they were in an emergency situation. You would probably just pull out your phone. Kind of complicated, and it's really hard to use and maybe not all that accurate. So that's why I think it's a fun watch. I think it's a really good looking watch, and I hope that Hamilton continue to build on this idea and make watches with rotating bezels that are field watches that are sort of very good everyday watches. I would like to see this in a GMT form, and that's what I hope for 2024 from Hamilton. Next on this list is a watch that I thought I would never mention in my whole life on a top list. It's a Rolex, and it's the Yachtmaster 42 in titanium. When they came out with this watch, I really did like it a lot. And now that I see the prices on the secondary market, I actually still love this watch, and I really do want to get it. It's the first Rolex that I've ever really wanted, but the secondary prices on this watch have gone berserk. They're coming in the $40,000 range or something like that. It's silly, but if you can get one through a retailer, which I will never be able to do because I don't have any relationship with a retailer or an AD, they are really cool. I like the look of this watch. I think the 42 millimeter is perfect. I really love the Yachtmaster in titanium. Next is another watch that I think is a little bit strange, and that's the reason why I like it. It's a reissue of the Skipper from Tag Heuer. Now, I don't think I've ever featured Tag Heuer on a top anything list. However, this is a really good looking watch in a really good size. They put a box sapphire crystal on here. When Tag Heuer get it right, they really do get it right, and they've been getting it right with a lot of their Carrera releases, a lot of their heritage releases. They've been doing them very well, and this is probably the best one for me. I got to try this on when I was in London this year, and I absolutely loved this watch. It's on the more expensive side. I wish it was a little bit cheaper, but all in all, a great looking watch, and I really love the design. Pretty early on in the year, a watch that was released that was a big surprise for a lot of people was the 43.5 millimeter version of the Bulova Lunar Pilot. This is a great looking watch in 43 millimeters. The 45 millimeter for a lot of people was a little too big. They came out with the 43 millimeter version. A lot of people complained that it was a little too shiny and it was still a little bit too big. However, there's one reason why I think it's perfect, and that's because it's exactly the same as the original watch that went to the moon. That watch was all polished. That's the reason why they came out with it in a 43.5 millimeter size, because it's exactly as the original. And I think they should do that before they come out with anything else smaller. The original is always the best. So we're nearing the end of this list. We're up to number 19, and that is the Vulcane Nautic Skin Diver. This is a beautiful reissue of one of their original skin divers, and they made it almost exactly as the original. They did a great job with the look of this watch, the feel of this watch. I actually have one in for review, and I am very excited to show it to you guys. Vulcane make really cool watches. They always have made very cool alarm watches, but they've never really come out with many dive watches. They've made extreme watches, which really weren't all that extreme, but this watch is, I believe, 300 meters water resistance or 200 meters of water resistance. It's just a good looking skin diver with some vintage chops, and I'm very excited to show it to you guys here on my channel. A watch that I don't see anybody talking about anymore, and we're at the end of the year, and I watch a lot of videos and I consume a lot of content about watches. It's the Omega Speedmaster Super Racing. This was a really technical watch that was introduced this year with new technology from Omega. It's the Spyrite system is what it's called, and it allows for accuracy up to 0 to 2 seconds per day. So 0 seconds to plus or minus 2 seconds per day. So there's very little deviation on these movements. It's a very accurate chronograph, and it's also really good looking. I think they did a great job with these watches. Unfortunately, no one is talking about them. And I think I mentioned a few watches here on this list that I don't think a lot of people were talking about. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about this list. Are there any watches on this list that you don't agree with? I know there are a bunch of watches that I missed. There was a Breguet Type 20 that came out this year that I would love to put on this list. A Blancpain 50 Fathoms that came out this year as well. There's a few other watches that actually should make this list if I could make this list longer, but this video is already very long and this year is going to end pretty soon. So guys, tell me what you think down in the comments below. Have a very happy new year. Be safe. Have a great time tonight. And of course, have a fantastic 2024. And hopefully you guys join me here on Watchchris in 2024. I appreciate all of you and all of your support. Thank you and have a happy, healthy new year.